How's it going, everyone? Welcome to another video on my 2023 Honda Civic Type R here on the PSR YouTube channel. This is Samir, and this is the official 20,000 mile update on the car. It was April of last year in 24 that I hit 10,000 miles, and now June of 25 we've hit 20,000 miles. It's not the only car I drive. For road trips, you know, we take my wife's RAV4 hybrid most of the time, and of course I drive my EJ6 at least one day a week. So you know, it takes a little over a year to hit about 10,000 miles in most cases, but that doesn't mean they haven't been super enjoyable. If anything, it makes it that much better when you're not driving this car all the time, although it would be an absolute joy to do so. I have other cars, what can I say? So we'll start this thing off with the obligatory walk around. You know, we're gonna do that thing we always do, which is, you know, cramp in a little bit when we get to the rear. I tried my best to sort of be back as far as, be towards the front of the driveway as much as possible, but even now it's certainly not perfect. But as you can see, you know, the car certainly has had some significant upgrades over the last 10,000 miles. If you've been paying attention even remotely on Instagram and elsewhere, you know what those are. And that's just one of the many things we're going to be discussing today. So today, essentially, we're gonna, you know, it should be a shorter video than last time because it's not, you know, the first sort of long-term review. It's a continuing long-term review. So the way I see this being structured is, you know, we talk about what's changed over the last 10,000 miles, what problems have I encountered / work has been completed with respect to the car outside of routine maintenance, general thoughts, you know, my thoughts and feelings over the last 10,000 miles, and finally, future plans. So let's just dive on in with the changes first. So to start things off, we're carrying off from where we left off last time. I was just about, what, 7 or so days away from getting these when I had the last video, but I've replaced the Gorilla Automotive lug nuts with these really nice Rays aluminum Dura lug nuts in black, of course. I did contemplate going either red or blue to sort of match the car a little bit, but I mean, these wheels already pop so much, what with the stickers and then, you know, being white in general. I just thought, you know, that's a little bit too much. And frankly, the thing about lug nuts is that no matter what you do, they're always going to get scratched up somewhat. And I just feel like the black hides it a little bit better. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense. It really, you know, silver, chrome hides it the best, but that's just not a good look. So, not going for that. Next up, we have a change to the suspension. We are part of the eibach group. I went with eibach Pro Kit lowering springs, which is, you know, approximately like what, 1 inch in the front, I think 0.8 inches in the back, lower. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it definitely makes a difference. You know, you can definitely see it. And then also, in terms of camber control, I went with eibach's, you know, Pro Alignment Kit, which is essentially just a pair of upper rear control arms, you know, rear upper control arms, with a adjustable camber, nice and straightforward. I have it set to pretty much OEM spec. Haven't done anything fancy there. At the end of the day, it is a daily. I want to promote tire life. I don't need to enhance track times, not at this point in my life. But yeah, so that was, you know, that's a good investment. You know, it ends up being, you know, a few $100s more to go that way, but you save a heck of a lot in the way of tire expense. You know, even if you can save, you know, half the life of one pair of tires, you know, it's definitely worth the investment, no question. And that leads us to the last major upgrade, which, you know, was featured in my last video, so it seems almost silly to talk about, but I've got my carbon fiber Seibon MB style front lip, which is just the best looking part of the car right now. I'm still absolutely in love with it. Still fits great, still looks super aggressive. It's been getting a lot of attention. People have absolutely been loving it, and I think in part because no one seems to be running this lip. I mean, I haven't seen one in person, certainly not, but even, you know, online, I mean, outside of Honda Pro Jason, I still haven't seen, no, scratch that. I've seen one other person on one of the Type R groups on Facebook run it, but otherwise it's just been, you know, just not getting as much attention or love for whatever reason, but it's a phenomenal piece. It fits really well. It looks really nice. What else can I say? So the last thing that we're going to talk about in this section. It's, you know, certainly not a modification. It's just me correcting something that I should have done before, and that was trimming the cargo tray here on the subwoofer side to make it fit properly. You guys might recall I complained about that in, you know, the last video, in the 10,000 mile update video, as well as other videos, and eventually I got around to freaking fixing that thing. Turns out Honda makes a one-size-fits-all cargo tray. You know, for the non-subwoofer and subwoofer cars, including the Type R, and all you gotta do is just, you know, take, you know, 2 minutes to trim the thing, and then it fits perfect. It's awesome. And if you want to see how to do that, check the card out in the corner, or link down below. We made a video on that. Okay, and that's as far as we go when it comes to the modifications and upgrades, and part of that is because this year has been a significant one in the way of financial investment. In case you couldn't tell, in case you didn't see this pop up in the video yet, we're moving. We are moving down to the Boise area, which, you know, I haven't lived there anywhere near full time since the summer of my freshman year in college. So that was the summer of 2014 or 2015, whatever it was. So it's been about a decade, a little over a decade. So it's going to be like a coming home moment for me. And we bought a house down there, you know, a nice large house on 2+ acres of property. Going to be building a shop. You know, it's a big time investment, but it's more than worthwhile. Obviously, though, because that requires so much investment, had to put off a little bit in the way of the Type R, but it's more than going to be worthwhile, believe me. The next topic I want to discuss is problems I've encountered or repairs that have been done. You know, any work that's been done outside of just the standard maintenance. You know, oil changes and tire rotations and all that jazz. The first one happened almost immediately after hitting 10,000 miles, and that was my front Honda emblem or badge getting such a large chip that it was embarrassing. And actually, we made a video on that. It was right before the 2024 Shark Fest season opener. Really bad timing and all that, but luckily I was able to get a new badge on right before the show, and we actually made a video on that as well, so feel free to check that out. The next thing for me had to do with the rear brakes. So at 17.2 thousand miles approximately, my rear brake pads were shot, apparently. I was having this noise, maybe I started getting this noise maybe a few hundred miles before I needed to go in for the next regular maintenance appointment, and it was obviously coming from the brakes. I'm like, what is that? I go in, they're like, hey man, yeah, your rear brakes are pretty much shot. You must really like braking. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't track this thing. I don't, I'm not driving super aggressively. I'm certainly not slamming on the brakes every chance I get. How could that be? Doing some research into it, turns out a lot of people in both FK8s and FL5s regularly have their rear brake pads wear out, in the 7, 8, 10,000 mile range. Some of them get higher, like me, in the 17 to 20,000 mile range. And even still, certain people seem to get even better than that. But it really seems to come down to one thing, and that has to do with the rear brake vectoring system in the car, which, when you're taking presumably hard corners, it applies brakes accordingly to each, to one side or the other or both, depending on the angle you're going at the time, your speed and all sorts of other factors, to essentially ensure stability. It's part of the, vehicle stability management system. Some people are saying that if you're going along in like plus R mode or sport mode or whatever, the system is working even if you're making just slight, slight turns, curving ever so slightly on the freeway or something. And I don't know that for a fact. I'm just going off of what I've been reading on forums, etc., Facebook and whatnot. But it really doesn't seem like a daily driver, whether it's a Type R or a standard Civic, should be needing brake pads replaced after 17,000 miles. It just seems excessive because the fronts certainly don't need that. Here I am, at 20,000 miles. The fronts are at approximately, I think 5 or 6 millimeters. The rears are already down to that low again. So, we're gonna, I don't know if I've been driving even more aggressively since the, the initial replacement or what, but, it's one of those things. People have seemingly accepted it as an issue, a common problem with these cars, and not even a problem. It's just something they accept as happening, and frankly, I can do the same. It's just somewhat frustrating to have a car, before you even hit 20,000 miles, you need new brake pads. And also had the rear rotors resurfaced at the same time those were installed, just to, avoid the need of having to replace those, at least at this point. Obviously if I had gone much longer, once they got to the point where they were pretty much shot, you're running the risk of ruining the rotors altogether and then having to replace them, and that's obviously expense I can do without for the time being. So now just a couple of boring things. Went ahead and had the steering gear recall repair done. That's a fairly simple job, fairly simple thing to have done. At around the same time that was taken care of, I had a software update installed, sort of fixing the P0011 check engine light issue. You guys will recall I had that happen twice before I hit 10,000 miles. It happened twice, and it's a pain because it essentially puts the car in a limp mode. It turns off the rev matching system. I swear it just just makes it super weird to drive, and it's just not fun, and it just gives you like 10,000 lights on your dash, and it's just a big pain every time you start it up. But it wasn't really clear why it was happening, but clearly it was a software issue. The way the code came up was whatever, intake camshaft position sensor, something like that. I still don't remember the name. Doesn't really matter, but the point is that has not come on since it hasn't come on at all over the last 10,000 miles, but it certainly hasn't come on since the software update was done. So the car's in ship shape now. Really not bad. So yeah, in terms of reliability, it's been aces. Obviously, we had that little ghost in there, that bug relating to that check engine light, which is not the end of the world, certainly not. Like I mentioned before, it is annoying when you have a new car and you have even minor issues come up. It's hard to demand perfection, I know, but coming from a Toyota Camry and then having my wife's RAV4 hybrid, which now has 37,000 miles, and it hasn't had one single thing, not one single issue. It's just again, it's just somewhat annoying. The next thing to discuss, I have two things I want to address now in terms of the daily ability of this car. I guess you can say we're getting into general thoughts at this point, sort of chapter 3 of this video. Two things. One, obviously, the car is lower now. The springs didn't do a lot to lower it. It's more so the approach angle that's really, that's really low. I mean, you can see it right here. I mean, you can look here. I don't have that steep of a driveway. It's actually a very, very nice low car friendly driveway. But even here, if I approach this really quickly, if I just went at full speed and just hit this full bore, yeah, I would scrape, and it would probably rip the lip off potentially, depending on the speed and severity. Obviously, that makes the car less dailyable. It's still very, very much usable. Very, very comfortable. I mean, I haven't run into this situation yet, but you can imagine if you're on the freeway going pretty fast and there ends up being like a big rock or a bit of debris in the middle of the roadway, I hit that, yeah, I'm gonna take a big hit. It's gonna do some damage, no question. But that's the risk you take with any low car. Then there's also if you're in a unfamiliar place, like I was in Yakima this last week. I was in court, a court I hadn't been to before, and I was filling up while I was down there, and it's like, well, I don't know what the gas stations are. I'll take a look. And I came to one, and I definitely scraped coming in, and even more getting out. Luckily, it's only on the underside, so it's no big deal at all. So it doesn't end up being a question of safety. It's more a question of how expensive of a mistake is this going to be if it goes wrong, kind of thing. It definitely puts you on your toes a little bit. I mean, the car being low and being a Type R anyway was already a little difficult to get into certain places. But it's just like with any low car, you just plan ahead. You think, okay, I'm going to a new place. Is it really smart to take the Type R there? Maybe I should take the EJ6. Right, that sort of thing. That's what I mean. And if I am going to take the Type R, I have to be prepared. I have to get there early so that if I can't park in this parking lot, I have to go somewhere else, look around, explore a little bit. Those are just things you have to account for. Obviously, again, that does make it less dailyable, but not in a way that deprives me of the joy. And certainly, the downsides to daily driving do not outweigh the benefits the lip adds, namely, aesthetics, aerodynamics, street cred if you care about it, etc. It's just fun. It's just fun to have, and frankly, it's kind of cool to. There's just something until you experience it, you don't even really know. But until your car, until you have to struggle a little bit in your car, you just don't appreciate it as much. And I definitely appreciate mine at this point. Definitely darker now, but I'm cool with that. The second thing I want to address is the springs and the ride quality. You'll hear a lot of people either get in the eibach Pro kit, which is the less aggressive, less harsh kit. Even get the Sportline kit, get Swift springs, get Spoon springs, whatever. And a lot of them say the same thing. They seem to parrot this. And I don't know if it's because they just so desperately want it to be true and so they say it, or if it's just because they hear other people say it, or if it's a placebo effect, or what have you. But they'll say that the car rides like stock. It's like, oh, on these springs, it rides like stock. I'll tell you, the eibach Pro kit, part of the reason I went with it is because it's not super aggressive in terms of lowering, and I'm really thankful for that, because if I went with the Sportline kit and then got this lip, I definitely would have torn it off a couple of times now. That like 0.2 or 0.3 inches really would make that big a difference in my particular set of circumstances. So no questions there. But beyond that, it's just, you know, it's just not, it's less aggressive. That's why I went with this set. You know, less harsh spring rate, you know, a little bit softer, definitely closer to OEM, but certainly not OEM. And so I wanted to talk about that a little bit. So I would say, you know, riding on the stock 19-inch wheels, going from stock springs to the eibach Pro kit, lowering springs, you're talking about a 10% change in stiffness. They're about 10% stiffer, and I believe that's accurate. I think another way to put it, you know, for those of you Type R owners who maybe, you know, maybe numbers don't make the most sense. Maybe you'd rather think of it in terms of, you know, driving modes. So take, for example, you know, you have 3 driving modes. You have comfort, sport, comfort, sport, and then, you know, race plus R, whatever. You know, you have pretty much the 3 settings. Comfort, sport, plus R. I would say that if you are riding around in comfort mode on the stock springs and you put the eibach springs in and you leave it in comfort mode, I would say it's now like you're driving around in sport mode. And then same thing with the next level up. If you're driving around in sport mode on stock springs, you now put on the eibach springs, it's going to be like you're driving around in plus R mode while staying in sport mode. And then you go into plus R mode and that's 10% stiffer across the board. You know, there's nothing comparable at that point. So yeah, definitely stiffer. Again, not in a way that significantly matters, especially, you'll note what I said was, that's if you're riding on the stock 19s. I'm riding on 18s, 18 by 9.5 Volk TE37 SLs, and that just makes all the difference in the world. I would say that probably decreases the stiffness that you feel, you know, in terms of bump stiffness, I mean, by 5%. So it ends up being just 5% stiffer across the board. I think that might be part of the reason why people say it feels like stock, because oftentimes people will lower the car and either simultaneously or soon before or thereafter get different wheels, you know, 18-inch lighter wheels. That tends to be one of the more popular sizes of this car is 18 inches. And with that in mind, yeah, I can't blame people for thinking that. I just wanted to clear that up a little bit, because I know inevitably there's going to be someone out there who wants to keep their car, you know, with the stock wheels. This is a popular look I've seen. You know, people getting, you know, 5, 10, 15 millimeter spacers, maybe 20 millimeter spacers with the OEM wheels. Keep that kind of OEM plus look, but then also lower it a little bit. And they're going to think, oh, it's going to ride just like stock because that's what everyone's saying. And then they're going to think, wow, maybe I shouldn't have done this. This is less comfortable than I like. Again, you know, people are going to have their opinions. People who, you know, buy Type Rs, people who, you know, have a certain perception of what you should, how you should treat a Type R, what you should do to a Type R, are going to say, hey, it's a race car, man. You should want it stiff. It's like, it's not a Mercedes. It's not an Audi. It's not a BMW, you know, that sort of thing. But frankly, you know, I just don't agree with that outlook. I understand it. But for me, the Type R is meant to be, you know, a great all-day, everyday car. It's meant to do it all. It's meant to go fast. It's meant to, you know, carve canyons. It's meant to go get groceries. It's meant to carry your children, your family. It's meant to go on road trips. I mean, that's just how it is. So I just wanted to put that out there. You know, those are my general feelings. I guess what's next to discuss then are just a couple of other thoughts I've had. I'll tell you this. I don't have to harp on any further about how nice of a car this is to drive, how good it looks, especially in Boost Blue, how much attention it gets. It's still a very hot car, very fun car. People really respect it. People seem to enjoy it. I love talking to people about it. I can't complain. It always turns heads. And it's just fun. I mean, I haven't felt that it's underpowered in any way. Haven't done any power mods yet. And I don't feel like I'm in a rush to do so. Sure. straight line speed, you could be hurting for it a little bit, maybe in the top of third and in fourth gear and beyond. But you know, I'm not really hanging out there. I mean, you know, I'm more about the cornering aspect, more about the handling aspect. That's where I really get my rush, not in turn, you know, I mean, even going from a standstill or a low speed roll, that's very invigorating. But you know, there's plenty of other cars out there that make way more power and can do that much better. For me, that's not really what I'm looking for from this car at the time. You know, for right now, I'm certainly going to want power at some point. I'm just letting you know that's not my main focus. I'd much rather have it handle better and look better for the time being. So you know, we're going to be getting used to getting settled into the move, getting up to speed on the house, getting things done around the house, getting settled into the new job. So it's buying more parts for the FL5, doing more with the FL5 won't be the absolute won't be at the absolute top of my priority list, especially because I'm planning on putting a little bit more focus into the EJ6. I want to do a little bit more work to that this summer / this fall. But I do have plans probably going into next spring, possibly. I don't really want to put a timeline on it, but that's what I think would probably be reasonable given what I know at the moment. But in terms of what's next, not entirely sure. What I can tell you is I'm certainly going to get more in the way of carbon fiber aero. At some point, I have a feeling a wing will be next. Won't be too obnoxiously large or anything like that, but then side skirts, diffuser. I have thoughts of exhaust. I've been scouting some various options in terms of exhaust. Again, want something dailyable, not necessarily something too loud or obnoxious. Just thinking about some interior upgrades as well. There's lots of things that are on the list, lots of things I want, but got to sort of spread the wealth across the hobbies, if you will. That's one thing. I mean, you guys know I'm a Lego fanatic. I got 2 cars that I'm building. I got I'm a video game player. There's just lots of places my money can go to, and where it ultimately does end up going. Obviously, if the FL5 was all I had, I'd probably be there. I'd probably have it fully built minus power upgrades by this point. But it's all part of the journey. It's nice to have these little updates, like little long-term statuses, going over where the car's at, how it feels, and all I can say is I'm absolutely thrilled with it. I certainly had it in my mind when I bought it, and I still have it in my mind to this day, 2.5 years later, that I want to keep this car long term. I want to keep it forever. By long term, I mean forever, assuming that's a possibility, assuming something catastrophic doesn't happen to it. I'm absolutely thrilled with it, everything about it. And I can't wait to talk to you guys again about it at 30,000 miles, and of course many times between now and then, because I certainly don't want it to end up being that I only talk about this car at the milestones. I want to show you guys the progress. I want to show you installation videos, other update videos. Maybe at some point we'll get into a position where we're actually using it in videos, once we upgrade our equipment a little bit more. See, there's another hobby expense. That's just how it goes. But anyway, I don't want to ramble at this point, as I tend to, so I'm just going to leave it at that. If you guys got any thoughts about what you want to see out of this car next, any thoughts about what you would do, whether you like what I've done or whether you don't like what I've done, what you would have done different, whether you would have done it the same way, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to comment below, and again, feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy what you see and you want to see some more. And I guess I'll see you all in the next video on the Type R or anything else.